Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Jess De Los Santos. Here are today's top stories. Peso-approved investments dropped 11.5% in the first 11 months of the year. Still, Peso remains confident that it can finish the year strong with a 6 to 7% growth in investments.
Economists attribute the surprise growth in exports in October to a hike in holiday demand.
Despite recent amendments, some lawmakers continue to question the Maharlika Investment Fund bill, citing issues in its timing and target yields.
And construction of the first phase of the Metro Manila subway is facing delays as the government continues to have difficulty in land acquisition. We begin our broadcast with approved investments in the PEZA, dropping 11.5% in the first 11 months. Now, PEZA reports that it generated some 57 billion pesos worth of investments from 181 projects in the January to November period. This is lower than the 64.4 billion peso investments from almost 230 projects a year ago. Despite the 11.5% decline, PEZA remains confident that it can achieve its 6 to 7% investment growth target for the full year, with 2 more board meetings scheduled this month. The 181 projects approved so far this year are estimated to create 33,000 direct jobs. Investments from Japan reached 17.7 billion pesos in the 11-month period, accounting for 31% of the total investments.
A surprise growth in exports helped narrow trade deficit in October on the back of increased external demand and a strong US dollar. Economists say that increased holiday demand gave the export sector a boost in October. The weak peso against the US dollar also made importing more expensive and less attractive at the moment. Still, economists are expecting imports to bounce back soon. The country's trade deficit stood at $3.3 billion in October, its narrowest gap in 17 months. This as exports expanded 20% while imports posted modest growth for the month.
Camarines Sur Representative Gabriel Bordado says it is not the right time for the Philippines to create a sovereign wealth fund. Now, while the congressman said he is not against the Maharlika Investment Fund, he urged fellow lawmakers to consider the timing. The lawmaker also says he agreed with concerns raised by economists and experts regarding the Maharlika Investment Fund. Economists had previously raised a red flag on mandating the Bangko Sentral to contribute its dividends to the fund, saying it would undermine the BSP's independence.
Napapanahon nga ba? Is it time for us to implement this sovereign wealth fund? Mr. Speaker, I don't believe so. I agree with the concerns raised by numerous top economists and academicians, as well as different business entities and personalities on the uncertainty of the Maharlika Investment Fund.
Gabriela Party List Representative Arlene Brosas also questioned keeping Land Bank as a contributor to the Maharlika Wealth Fund. This after Congressman Erwin Tieng said that land bank's yields could rise to as high as 8.5% if invested into the fund from the current 4.37%. Tieng confirmed that the estimate is based on the average profit of wealth funds in other countries. Brosas, however, flagged that point of comparison.
Hindi ba, Mr. Speaker, unscientific na gamitin yung other countries as benchmark, no? Dahil magdedepend yung ROI or return of investment sa portfolio or size of investments. Hindi ba overly optimistic itong 7 to 8% natin?
Now, our guest today first voiced support for the Maharlika Investment Fund, but backtracked after more details were presented. But now that amendments have been introduced, where do they stand now? We have George Barcelon, President of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Sir George, good day. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
All right, first, your
Yes,
reactions to
thanks.
those amendments. Where do you stand now when it comes to the Maharlika Investment Fund? Of course, GSIS and SSS have been removed as funding source. At the same time, penal provisions have been introduced. And then there's now a clear idea that 20% at least will go to social welfare and that the president is no longer going to be chairing the board. So what are your thoughts now on the MIF?
The amendments that has been put in, I think, is very appropriate. It answers some of the concern or some of the fear of the public and also some of the legislators. And of course, the fact that now there's a prescription for penalties for misappropriation or for any wrongdoing. So I can see that and of course lately President BBM has acknowledged he's taking ownership of this proposal, and I take it that maybe through his visit to the other countries that he saw the benefit of having at that time a sovereign fund. I was just looking at some other countries. As a matter of fact, Indonesia just set up their sovereign fund last year. Of course, amidst all the uncertainty. Of course, the other countries, you can say those who have been there, like Singapore has been there way back 1974. One of the more big sovereign fund, of course, is Norway because they're resource surplus. They've been set up in the 1990s. So a lot of countries set up their sovereign fund at different decades. Now, for us, one area that we've been hearing is the timing of this, of putting up. And the concern is well expressed by many sector of our society. What the president said, let the legislators do their work, make comments, and the hope is that there will be a version that is acceptable. On a personal note, the president ran, and when he was given the mandate, he stressed about the unity of the country. And we can see that during the first 5 months, his popularity rating is quite high, acceptable. And then this sovereign fund was proposed, and there seems to be a division of the House. And from the pronouncement of President BBM, I can see that he's trying his very best to mend that, to still maintain that the anchor of his administration is for unity. So how far that will be stretched? I've heard some congressmen who initially objected to this fund, but lately with the amendments, he's talking like, let's see. I mean, let's see how far we can stretch this to make it work.
Right.
So again, that's how we look at it, in the sense that the both sides, pro and con, have been airing some of the concern, and the other side, the proponent, are listening. Okay, they've been willing to tweak it, to make it in a way that the safeguards are put in place. And when those are talked about, I don't hear it explicitly mentioned, but those are really about the transparency.
Okay. Sir, just to clarify your positioning on the timing of the fund, this was not included in the LEDAC priority bills, but now lawmakers are urging for the urgent passing of this bill. President BBM's pronouncement for at least this year was to fix the inflation problem and to fix the agriculture problem. Should this bill take much of his attention during this time?
Well, I do agree that we have more pressing issues at hand: the inflation and of course the food prices.
Economy tayo.
Yes, and of course, as of late, we're seeing again the possibility of U.S. Federal Reserve increasing interest rates, and those are all again will bring about uncertainty. A lot of times we talk about uncertainty is that the uncertainty is really from external factors, no? But here in our country, with our limited resources, I cannot blame different sectors of our country concerned that whether we are putting urgently needed resources in some areas that needs to be addressed.
All right. Now,
Sir, I just wanted to ask po about the specifics of the fund no, before we go forward to other issues in the economy. We'll still be, despite the fact that GSIS, SSS are no longer mandated to contribute, but with the direction of the board, they still can actually. And then Land Bank and DBP are still mandated to invest. Sir, is this something that is all right with you, especially since the dividends will be going to the fund instead of the national budget?
This aspect of Land Bank, DBP, and involvement of BSP, of course, the two are government institutions, and they in the normal operations, the money they make also goes to the coffer of the government. Okay? Now that the government, I don't have the data, but I would like to think that this would be vetted among the directors of both banks for them to see the rationale. For them to see the rationale that if you have a bigger fund that is well managed, the return could be bigger. In any business, I think the volume speaks for itself, like price. But if you buy it 1,000, you get a
okay. Okay, we seem to be having some problems
so
with your
this is
audio,
how
Sir
I
George.
would,
All right, go ahead.
maybe the bankers would see from their point. We here, especially like most of us, we're not in the financial institutions, so we may not how this thing works.
Okay, and then we'll try to continue on.
Yeah, that part came choppy. I couldn't hear. I couldn't get it.
Okay.
Hello, Sir George. Sir George, you're still with us?
We still
Okay.
seem to have lost Sir George. We'll
George.
go back to him later on. That was, of course, George Barcelon, President of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, we'll
and
try to
Industry.
get back to him as much as we can. But for now, we're going to pause for a quick break. After that,
Now, after King Philip of Belgium, President Marcos urged members of the European Union to help the Philippines address its climate change issues. That and more when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here in One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. Now, President Bongbong Marcos visited the Royal Palace of Belgium for an audience with King Philippe. Malacanang says Marcos met with King Philippe to discuss issues between the two nations. Now, despite lower temperatures taking a toll on his voice, President Marcos did not miss a single meeting during the ASEAN-European Union Commemorative Summit in Brussels. During the ASEAN-EU luncheon, the president called on European countries to help the Philippines in combating the effects of climate change in the country. The president also met with Brussels airport officials for the establishment of direct flights between Manila and Brussels.
It is important that our governments continue to collaborate with the private sector, especially now that the ASEAN member states are in a post-pandemic economic recovery and are facing new challenges brought about by recent geopolitical tensions.
Now, prior to this, the president also met with the International Maritime Employers Council. President Marcos has ordered the creation of an advisory council for the maritime industry to help the country meet European standards for seafarers. The president also sought to amend laws connected to the accreditation of the European Maritime Safety Agency to ensure that Filipino seafarers will pass evaluation but will have enough protection. The president hopes to accomplish this in 3 months or before EMSA's deadline. Okay, circling back to our top story, the Maharlika Investment Fund is getting more support from lawmakers following amendments to weigh in on that from the private sector. At least we have again George Barcelon, president of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Sir George, let's have a quick check of your audio first. Good day, sir.
Yes, I think
All right.
I'm back.
All right,
Better
we're
now.
back. Okay.
Okay.
Am I coming clear? Okay.
Yep,
Yes, sir.
loud and clear.
Thank
now,
you.
earlier you were talking about funding here coming, of course, from the other GFIs, the likes of Land Bank and DBP. But one of the more sticking point would have to be the BSP as well, with the amendments now requiring 100% of the dividends to actually go to Maharlika for the first 2 years, and then eventually reducing that to 50% before recapitalization to going full 100% again. How sound is that move from your point of view? Would this in any way muddle the BSP's mandate?
The BSP, of course, we know is an independent financial institution in a way. And the governor, Mr. Medalla, has, of course, at the very onset voiced the concern of whether it is prudent for BSP, to be involved in this investment fund. But as of late, I saw the statement that was put out by the economic team, and seems like they were able to discuss this issue, and for Governor Felipe Medalla to concur with the broader picture of their involvement. We all know that there's a requirement for central bank to top up their equity side. I don't have the figures, and we would like to hear from maybe Governor Medalla that if the funds are partly the dividend are put into the investment fund, what would be the timeline for them to top up the required equity of central bank to 200 billion? That would give us an idea of how that side of things would be affected.
And then what for you would be the priority investment here should this get past Congress? You have NEDA Secretary Balisacan saying that, we need to prioritize mass transportation, particularly railways, if this comes to fruition. For you, at least from the private sector, what should be the priority here?
Just from the private sector, as we can see that at the onset, the President understood the importance of the agri-sectors. And that's why, in a way, to describe it appropriately, he took the bull by the horn. We know that agri sector is a very challenging and very pressing issues for us, and that would be, I'd like to think, on top of mind, that whatever we can do, whatever investment that we can do to bring down cost of food, and And of course, our food prices now is high, and because of all of this impact on our depreciation of our currency, the crude oil, fertilizer, all of that must be looked at. No? And even the fact that our costs on agri products has reflected the our logistic uh, playing a critical role. The logistic of transfer, of vegetable, food to market, all of this adds up, and this is passed on to the consumer. So
Okay.
if the fund can be put in a place where it can be put into some either infrastructure or invest in some companies that are more creative in dealing with these issues, that would be a big help.
All right. So again, you mentioned earlier on in the interview, no, some good revisions, amendments, a unification of both sides, and compromises still occurring, but at the same time, the timing of the funds still in play with high inflation and, as you mentioned, geopolitical issues and looming recession globally still in question there. But thank you so much for those insights, George Barcelon, President of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Right-of-way issues continue to be a problem for the Metro Manila Subway project. Project Manager Engineer Mikey Mendoza told Agenda that acquiring land for the subway project remains a challenge, with several landowners refusing to cooperate. The issue is causing delays on the construction of the project's first phase. Mendoza says they are now looking to tap different agencies and local government units for help. The Transportation Department has already acquired 90% of the properties needed for the first phase of the project, which is expected to be completed by 2028.
Nagsimula po kami from scratch. Wala po talagang available na lupa bukod po dun sa mga na-identify na government properties na pwede pong daanan ng subway. May mga konti pa rin pong property owners na nagre-refuse talagang makipag-cooperate po.
Meanwhile, a business group says the government is losing at least 250 billion pesos in revenues annually due to smuggling. According to the Federation of Philippine Industries, industries directly hit by smuggling include sugar, textile and garments, tires, steel, and liquefied petroleum gas tanks. The group noted that raising sin taxes on cigarettes only encouraged more smuggling. The Federation notes that 14% of cigarettes in the country is considered illicit. Because of this, the estimated revenue loss from excise tax alone amounts to around 24.7 billion pesos.
Now, despite high inflation, vehicle sales remained up in November. Campi reported that vehicle sales rose by more than 30% year-on-year last month. This was driven by increased sales in commercial vehicles, with over 26,000 units sold in November. Passenger car sales also saw an increase in the same month, up nearly 9%. However, the vehicle sales in November slowed compared to the figure in October. Still, Campi says economic activity can be attributed for the growth in car sales despite record high inflation. What inflation? Those are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. We are One News, all sides, all the time. Don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here on One News. Now, Dan, we're all awaiting the Fed's decision, but how are markets sentiment at the moment prior to that call by the Fed?
Well, just another day, another Fed rate hike. But again, the question is by how much? So most analysts are thinking of 50 basis points, especially as the CPI or the inflation over in the US was softer than expected here. So maybe, could bode well, especially for Asian currencies, because the dollar might weaken now and of course prop up the peso. You can see the equities over in the US staging quite a rally yesterday, but you can also see us following suit. So we are up at 6,600 pesos. And this, is in line with what Sun Life is saying, or at least yesterday, Mike Enriquez did mention in their forum that the index may rise to 7,850 by next year, Jess, and he does see a better than expected earnings of companies, sustained economic recovery, and moderating inflation. That would be around a 19.2% gain from yesterday at a base case scenario. He's also looking at lower inflation there to 4.5% next year as the weather improves and also commodity prices dissipate. So let's see how that goes. Meanwhile, just a quick check on the peso here, Jess. We are strengthening a touch at 55.66 ahead, of course, of the Fed and what will be after that the ECB and then the BSP's rate decision.
Okay, but let's zoom in on one particular stock here with one company having issues with its joint venture partners.
Exactly. So I want to show here the 1-month chart of SPNEC. That is, of course, Solar Philippines Nueva Ecija. This as it dropped 16% yesterday and in 3 days already down by 13%. The issue here is that it says that they are engaging with their joint venture partner because the joint venture partner wants to purchase land that was supposed to be used for the solar projects. Okay, and if that, they did not disclose, of course, the name of this JV partner, but they did mention there's disagreements on certain matters, which, if unresolved, will compel each to buy out the other. They even said that it's in the best interest of those shareholders to reject this purchase offer so that that land essentially could be used for the solar project. So big question here on matutuloy ba ang solar projects of SPNEC, Jess?
Okay, that's a whole new saga there for SPNEC. And that's it for today, December 14, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess Dos Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. Stay safe, Philippines. We are One News, all sides, all the time.